Yes, sir. Welcome back. Talking Nets, episode 52. 50 Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn talking Nets with old Hudson and Keith, coming to you on a Wednesday afternoon in the middle of the NBA playoffs. No, the Nets aren't on. The Nets have been eliminated. It seems like they've been gone for a while out of the bubble, but it also seems like it's been a while since our last episode where we were literally live on air and heard the news that the Lakers were dropping out and the Clippers were dropping out and that the LA teams voted to not continue the season. Now, that's not exactly what happened, but here we are. The NBA has resumed. It seems like a lot has gone on in the last week and changed, and we're back right here to talk about it. Hudson Flynn, my guy, what's going on, bro?
Not much. I'm just glad we were able to get through that intro without anything breaking or any Woj bombs. Just able to get our podcast going and talk some good basketball. We're talking NBA this episode.
Yeah, got to talk NBA. Now that the Nets are eliminated, this pod essentially will be an NBA pod, then a Nets pod, and then probably just anything else that we feel fits or feel needs to be discussed or talked about. I think, honestly, the first thing that we need to discuss and talk about are some people we lost over the course of the last few days, last week. Rest in peace, Cliff Robinson, former Net. Chadwick Boseman, the Black Panther, also played Jackie Robinson in 42. John Thompson, Georgetown Hoyas, legendary coach. And Lute Olson, another legendary coach and someone that the NBA world has lost this week. It's crazy. They say death comes in threes. We got the threes. We got 4 names we just put out. All names that, affected people in our circles, in our world, the black community, the NBA community. And, man, 2020, I don't know what else has got left, but it's been a bitch so far. It's taken a lot of people from us. It's taken a lot of energy from us. And we're in the last third of the year with 4 months to go.
Yeah, it's a weird vibe. Every day it feels like we're Rocky and Rocky 4, just getting pounded with all this new news, all this stuff going on, and we gotta stay on our feet. We gotta keep going. We gotta keep fighting. But every day it seems like we're getting more taken away from us, more taken away from the world. Obviously, Chadwick Boseman, you mentioned Black Panther, Jackie Robinson, Thurgood Marshall. He just had Da 5 Bloods come out. He was actively making movies, 4 years into a battle with colon cancer. You think about John Thompson, potentially the earliest example of, black coaching excellence in the basketball world. He, famously walked off the court in protest to Proposition 48 back when he was coaching at Georgetown, and that drew a lot of similar parallels to what we're having go on in the NBA today, with people walking out in support and in protest of things being done to the black community. And Cliff Robinson, obviously, he was a former Net, best known. He was a trailblazer, and it was a good gesture. All of the Blazers players, the Lakers players, they all put on that black headband in that game that they played. And you said death comes in threes, but it came in fours this week. And Lute Olson, another famous coach, and it just seems like 2020's piling on at this point. But as a lot of people have said in memory of these great figures, is it's better to talk about their successes, to talk about what they've brought us, and to celebrate them rather than to mourn them. And I think that's what we're going to do here.
Absolutely. 2020 is a year of just people just seeing things clear and things changing. And, we lose people every year, but it's harder in this year because, the amount of people we lost from the coronavirus unexpectedly and just where our country is at, it's tough. It's not easy. The conversations we're having are not easy to have. And then you hear breaking news, we lose, any of these guys. And, we saw like Allen Iverson come out this week and talk about John Thompson. We saw Chadwick Boseman was at the All-Star game, and he was even involved in the dunk contest with Victor Oladipo. I think it was 2 years ago. But you think about this guy having cancer and fighting through cancer for 4 years and still making classic films and working hard and solidifying, his legacy. And, the Black Panther movie is huge. I'm a big fan of comic books, Marvel Comics, and I know a lot of people felt that when we got that news this past weekend. So rest in peace to those guys. Talking Nets episode 52. We got to talk some Nets. We got to talk some Nets news. Not much out there, but if you follow us on Twitter, which you should, if you follow us on Instagram, which you should, we try and stay on top of it, try and put things out there that make sense for us. And what made sense for us this week was that the NBA leads and everyone follows, but the Brooklyn Nets lead and the NBA follows. Hudson Flynn put that on Twitter because the Barclays Center, as a part of the Brooklyn community, is going to be an election polling site. They are going to set up the arena, and I'm sure some of you have heard about the NBA teams that are doing that. I think that's something that came out of the meeting last week. When we had this episode on Wednesday night, the players met to vote, but then they had another meeting with the board on Thursday morning, and I think one of the plans of action was to convert these arenas, like in Atlanta, I think it's the State Farm Arena, a couple other places, convert these arenas into voting areas, voting polling sites, they're called. And that makes sense because a lot of these areas, it's tough to find a place to vote, or they make it extremely difficult for you to vote where you're waiting in line for hours. And it's almost like a test to see if you really want to vote that bad. The system's been crooked like that for forever. They don't want you to vote. But now, if you can pull up to the stadium, a stadium that seats 30,000 people plus, they can figure out how to get you in and out of there, hopefully in less time than it would for your local town or area to vote. So I love this idea. What did you think about this, Hudson?
Well, I think it's a great idea. Obviously, a lot of the credit goes to LeBron. His more than a vote movement was definitely an impetus for a lot of this movement. I know, like the Staples Center, they came out early and they said that they were going to do this, but it's just a continued trend by the Brooklyn Nets. Last week we talked about how Joe Tsai came out and he said he was pledging a whole lot of money, $50 million, I believe, if I remember correctly, to these social justice movements. And this was even before the NBA players walked off the court. So it's great to think that we can take so much pride in being Nets fans, but not just pride in our basketball team, pride in the community, pride in our team, not for what they put on the court, but for what they do off of the court. And it just feels good because there's a lot of organizations that people can be fans of where you can't have that same level of pride. I mean, you're a Cowboys fan. Obviously, there's lots of problems associated with Jerry Jones. But think about fans of the Washington football team, as they're now known. It's hard. The things seem to keep coming for them. And there's just all these organizations where there's so many organizational problems. And the Nets, for all these years, mired with lack of success on the court, it's change in ownership. Our owner at one point was a Russian oligarch, and there's problems associated with that. But it seems now we've reached a new era of stability, both on and off the court, and I'm excited for it, and I think you should be too.
Yeah, definitely excited for it. And this is back-to-back weeks I get to say fuck Jerry Jones. But how about them Cowboys? I don't know if any football fans are out there listening, but hey, Dallas Cowboys, we're going to put it together in this weird-ass year. Expect the Cowboys to compete, and I'll be out here talking about them. How about them? Either way, understanding exactly where you're coming from with that. And I don't know how many times on this podcast I said I'm proud to be associated with the Brooklyn Nets. They do all the right things on and off the court. It's bigger than basketball, and that's great. Now, going back into basketball, we still got to find a head coach. We still got to figure out who the guy to lead this team is, this most anticipated Nets team of all time. Interim head coach Jacques Vaughn is my early pick, and I've said this at least 1,000 times. Just give him the job. Don't go searching for something that's not there. Don't go, looking for something that's not there. But The Athletic put out an article this week that said the Nets have formally interviewed Jacques Vaughn for their head coaching position. And I mean, the Nets have an article coming out that's saying the Nets have formally interviewed him is great because that's just one step closer, especially for a lot of people that, like myself, were thinking, hey, this guy was never in the plans. This guy performed. He surpassed expectations. He was never in the plans. They never expected him to come in as interim coach and beat LeBron, beat Kawhi, beat Giannis. He's not in the plans. But if they're interviewing him, he is. And I'm sure there are going to be things from his interview that hold weight next to other candidates. Hudson, what were you thinking when you saw the article pop up out there that Jacques Vaughn, the JV era, could potentially continue in Brooklyn?
I focused on the second part of what the little breaking news tweet that we got from Sham said, that Vaughn impressed. And I sent out a tweet from Talking Nets as soon as I saw that. I said, oh, that's all he does. That's all he has done. That's all he continues to do is impress the Nets, impress the fan base. We've reached a point with him where if he doesn't get hired, the one of two things happen. Either he said, okay, I just put out that strong resume. I want to go somewhere else and build my own brand, because it might be hard to build your own personal coach's brand with Kyrie, KD on the court. Or no matter what he did, no matter what he could have done, it was never going to work. He was never in the plans, and he continued to not be in the plans despite going out to Florida, winning games with that ragtag group of bubble Nets, despite keeping order in the locker room and putting a focus on social justice when that is so important in today's society. But there's a chance that he doesn't get hired, and there is never a chance that he would have gotten hired in the first place, just in that scenario. And he is my personal favorite. It's him and Pop up there for me as my two favorite candidates, because Jacques did what Jacques did. He impressed. He continued to impress. And obviously Greg Popovich is Greg Popovich. But we're going to get into more of a conversation about some of the other coaching options, namely that one assistant on the Los Angeles Clippers that everyone seems to keep talking about. And to me, it's hard to think of anything any coach can do other than Greg Popovich that would be able to impress more than Jacques Vaughn did. But I'll let you take away with your thoughts on this.
I mean, my thoughts are like yours. Of course he's going to impress. He's been nothing but impressive. He's been nothing but prepared. The situation is not too big for him. And I understand some people want to say, well, it's one thing to coach a bunch of backups. It's another thing to coach stars. I don't think that changes for him. I don't think that it's that big of a deal for him to coach KD and Kyrie. And the biggest thing I want to say about Jacques Vaughn is that he's been in the room. We don't have time for a new voice to come in that hasn't been in the room. We don't have time to adjust to a new coach. Here's some more football. You guys see Joe Judge out there, right? The Giants head coach. I like Joe Judge. I actually, even though I hate the Giants, I like what he brings to the table. I feel like he needs to force those ways onto the Giants to get some type of productivity out of those guys, to change the culture. Now, with the Nets, we've gone through a culture shift, culture change, whatever you want to call it. I don't think we have that much time to completely flip what's going on and say, okay, now Popovich, you run the show, or Ty Lue, you run the show. Jacques Vaughn has been in the locker room as an assistant. He was there through the Kenny era. He was there, in the bubble era. Like, these are recent moments with guys on this team that are going to be here that fans aren't going to forget and players aren't going to forget. So I think that holds a lot of weight. Now, the next thing we have to talk about is Greg Popovich, Ty Lue. We might as well get right into that. I saw you put, Pop News. Would he leave? I'll kick that off. No, I've been saying this for a while. How old is Pop? Pop is close to 80. I don't think Pop is trying to come to New York right after a pandemic and get a crib where? In Jersey, in Staten Island, Long Island? Like,
you think Pop's gonna live in Staten Island?
Fuck no. That's what I'm saying. He had an estate in Texas. And I know that he put it on the market to sell, but that's probably because he's older and he needs a smaller spot. But I don't see that man coming all the way over here to New York to coach this team. And I know it's a good dream to have, just like having KD and Kyrie on this team was a great dream to have and have come true. But I don't think we need to reach for Pop. And I see a lot of Nets Twitter like Pop to Brooklyn, Pop to Brooklyn. Yeah, it sounds cool, but it doesn't sound that good to me. I don't think he's the guy.
Here's what I'll say about Greg Popovich and all these rumors. You're right. He's old. And with that logic, that actually plays into what I think is the one reason that he would come to the Nets. He's on this Spurs team, didn't make the playoffs for the first time in 20-some years. He's in a position on that team where he doesn't have as bright of a future. He's an older guy. He's in a situation where, okay, he could bear down. He could, go onto these day-to-day operations and build this team back up to where he had it at one point. But it has since fallen. It has since collapsed into a team that is not going to win a championship anytime soon, which would all but mean for Popovich that he is going to die without getting another ring. He goes to the Nets, he can get that swan song. He can get that one last ride. He can go out one last time and he can win a championship. And I don't think there's any opportunities across the NBA where you can just parachute into as good of a situation as is the Nets. Now, personally, obviously I love Pop. I love Jacques Vaughn more. I do see some issues with him coming. Obviously, he's going to lose a little bit of authority. He was the head coach and president of the Spurs organization, so there's some things there, and there's a lot of reasons why he couldn't. Like Keith said, he's old. He's absolutely not living in Staten Island. He's not having an estate. But he could want that. He could be success first. He could be, okay, this is a new challenge. This is a kind of challenge that I haven't had to face as a coach. He's never parachuted into a situation quite like this. Everything that he's done in his whole career has been his way or the highway. And now he's coming into a team where the stars are there. The development is done. This could be the last test of his coaching to see if, okay, you give me the pieces, can I go out there and convert? And I think that's a challenge that he's facing. That's a similar challenge, if we're going back to football, and we seem to be a lot this episode, like Bill Belichick is facing. Bill Belichick, he's heard all the chatter. Is it him or Tom Brady? Who was the reason that the Patriots won? Now you look to Pop. Was it him? Was it Tim Duncan? What was it? Who was the one? Who was the reason that made that happen? Maybe Pop wants to go out and say, I can go anywhere. The Spurs aren't me. I wasn't there. Didn't have my success because of these players. And he wants to prove this point one last time that he is the greatest coach in NBA history.
I appreciate the argument for the sake of the podcast, but I can't go with it, bro. I look at it like this, right? And we're talking NFL. The NFL is just, it's in the air. We don't see any preseason games, but we know the NFL is on the way. Now you look at a guy like Andy Reid, right? Had a good run with the Eagles, never won anything. Finally gets to the Chiefs, gets a few years to figure it out, does win something. A guy like Belichick, he's got rings, and he's still in his same situation. He wants more to prove Tom Brady wasn't the reason that he won all those, but he's still in the same place. He didn't have to go somewhere else. Tom Brady's trying to figure that out in Tampa, and I don't think they have a shot. Now, when you look at Pop, I don't think Pop wants to come to New York. You look at how Pop is with the media. He doesn't want to deal with New York media on a day in, day out basis in New York, where he's always going to have to answer to Knicks fans, always going to have to answer to Knicks reporters when there's really nothing there with the Nets and Knicks, just a little rivalry that really doesn't make too much sense. And then also, here's my nightmare. My nightmare is that we do have KD. We do have Kyrie. Maybe we even make a trade to get Bradley Beal or Drew Holiday or who knows, a third superstar. And then we get Pop. And now it's like you got the head coach, you got three superstars, you're all in, and you don't get it done. And you come short of the NBA Finals in year one. Or worse, you go to the finals in year one and you lose. Like, my nightmare is that, okay, you stack all the chips and don't get it done. Because there are still good teams out there. There's good teams in the East. There's good teams in the West. KD, different animal. Him and Kyrie, something we've never seen. Yeah, I think we're immediately going to be, contenders. But I think I don't know. If we get Pop, I think we're doing too much, and then that nightmare is closer to happening than not happening. I'm out on Pop. I'm also out on Ty Lue. I don't think Ty Lue's the right guy. I think he's a great coach. I think he deserves a shot somewhere. But I think there are other openings, like we would have talked about last week with Brett Brown getting fired in Philly and Nate McMillan getting fired in Indiana. There are other openings where I think a Ty Lue will be better served. I don't think he's ready for this. I don't think he's ready for the bright lights of New York City with guys like KD and Kyrie to answer to. I think a guy like Jacques Vaughn, it wouldn't phase. I think a guy like Jacques Vaughn is already comfortable in his own skin right here, and he's the guy. So I'm going to keep pushing the narrative of the JV era being it and nobody else until we get to that time. But we'll see. I want to talk next about KD and Kyrie because we keep mentioning them, and we are in the new era, folks. Talking Nets, fam. Every episode after we lost to the Raptors is now the KD Kyrie era for real. We have moved on to the next chapter. Now, if you follow Kyrie and KD on social media, which you should, they've been putting out some cryptic stuff, but I think it's positive stuff, and it makes me think about where they must be mentally, where they must be emotionally, what they might be just thinking of right now in this time that's been challenging for all of us. So Kyrie put out a story today. We're recording this on September 2nd, Wednesday afternoon. This has been out for like 3-4 hours, but the first thing said, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. We must learn to see the world anew." I'm not sure whose quote that is, but I know he took that quote from somewhere. There's a longer quote that he put in there that I think he might have. I forget where I thought I've heard this quote before.
They're popular quotes. They're all in quotes. Everything he posted was a quote.
Yeah.
They're all on the same thread though. So obviously
maybe
we're not
this
gonna
was.
go in.
I think this might be a James Baldwin quote.
Oh, it might be. I think you're right. I think you're right. But it's a longer quote.
It's definitely a James Baldwin quote. It just came back to me. I'm not going to read all of it, but the beginning is definitely something I've heard James Baldwin say. He says, "To be a Negro in this country and to be relatively conscious is to be in a state of rage almost all the time and in one's work. And part of the rage is this: it isn't only what is happening to you, but it's what's happening all around you and all the time in the face of the most extraordinary and criminal indifference." Yeah, relatable content. I want to say James Baldwin had some type of interview or place where he spoke on that. If you follow me in the middle of, June, I was definitely on some James Baldwin stuff. You should check out any of his books and any of his interviews. Very intelligent guy, well-spoken guy before his time. He should be honored. And I think Kyrie is doing his best to put out quotes like that. So the next quote from Kyrie is, "There is a higher law than the law of government. That's the law of conscience." And then he put out a picture. I didn't connect where the black woman with the
this picture. I can actually step in here because
who this is.
This is actually what I'm studying right now in school. But that's it's a print from about the mid. I've seen it before, from the mid to early 1700s, late 1600s, around that time, and it's a print done by the Royal African Company, and it's Keith explained it a little bit. It's it looks to be a slave woman with whip marks on her back, standing, with her back facing the portrait. And the Royal African Company, they were the world's largest importer, I guess is the only word you can use. It's terrible. Kidnapper, whatever it might be, of slaves bringing to the New World. And this is just an image of like one of the slaves that they might have brought, and it's like showing. It's terrible even to speak in these terms, but it's a print showing like the product, if that's what they would have called it at the time. And I think it's become, in recent years, at least in academic study, it's just been an example of both the atrocity of everything that was committed, as well as showing what these people were and what they did to these African people. And I think Kyrie is just continuing that thread of saying there is this constant rage, and you'll obviously be able to speak this better than I can. There's this constant rage within the African American, within the black community across the world, because of the things being done to their brothers, to their sisters, and the fact that these things are being done to their brothers and their sisters, and nothing is being done about it, and nothing continues to be done about it.
Yeah, it's not new. And I think that's what Kyrie is aiming to show here. Like, it's just repackaged. Kanye West said, "Racism's still alive. They just reconcealing it." It's always been here. We've always been discriminated against, just in different ways. And I think what Kyrie is doing is a lot of reading. The next quote that he put out there is another quote that I feel like I've seen somewhere, maybe in politics. I'm not sure who said it, but he says, "The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the mind of the masses." Now this quote is from years ago, more so before we had social media, more so before we had the internet, talking about really like newspaper, television, and radio. And all of those platforms were produced and controlled and had an agenda. Now with social media and the internet, you can kind of uncover your own truths and research and find what you want. So Kyrie is on it. And, lastly from his story, he posted about 5 books, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books. Ancient Egyptian Economics by Muta Ashby, Philosophy and Opinions by Marcus Garvey, The Black Image in the White Mind, which is by, who is this?
That's Fredrickson, I think is the last name. I think it's a textbook.
Fredrickson. There was a little bit of a glare over it, so I could not exactly see that. The last book, Cornell West, the Cornell West Reader. He also put in here the ISIS Papers, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, and Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America by Claude Anderson. I got to pick at least one of these books to try and read. As we're getting closer to the end of the year, I'm definitely going to take some time off. I'm definitely going to take some time away from the internet and just read. And one thing I'll tell anyone listening to this podcast, I think I was talking to John Boy about it, because John Boy's a big books guy and reads a lot. And a lot of the information that we seek, a lot of information that's been out here for a long time, it's hidden in books. And yeah, you can get anything from the internet, but it's not things that you're going to necessarily type into Google. That information, that truth that you seek is in books that were written. And you can find that by just taking the time and taking your curiosity and picking up a book and reading. You don't even have to read the whole thing. Read a couple pages. Even with, this whole pandemic and then us falling into what we fell into after George Floyd passed. And it's like, okay, a easy way for white people, or people, not even just white people, people in general, to try and have more compassion for black people, read black authors. And that's the same thing goes for like the LGBTQ community. Read someone else's perspective that's not your own. Read a gay author, read a trans author, read the perspective of someone else by yourself, where you can kind of step into someone else's shoes. But, I know people aren't going to do that like their own views and don't want to hear anybody else's stuff. And that's most of Americans. And before we talk more about Americans, let's talk about Katie's cryptic tweets. Did you catch these when he put them out 3 days ago? I was online when he did. I just liked it, and I was reading some of the replies. And of course, everybody always thinks anything KD puts out is about basketball, is about the Nets. But he wrote, "Are you doing this work to facilitate growth or to become famous?" And then in the next tweet, he wrote, "Which is more important, getting or letting go?" I don't know what you thought about that when you saw that, but I'll tell you after, you kick your opinion or your thoughts. I'll tell you what I was thinking.
I mean, I came into the first one, which, are you doing this to facilitate growth or to become famous? I read that, with the backdrop of everything that was going on in the NBA, as, are there people who are coming out and trying to put on a public face of, we support Black Lives Matter, we support Black Lives, we're doing all of this. Are you doing that because you actually want Black people and Black America to prosper? Are you just doing that, for yourself? Are you just doing that for clout? Are you just, virtue signaling, I believe is what it's called? I also thought, on the other hand, KD could be talking about something completely different and completely unrelated, because we never know, because it's KD. And then the second one, which is more important, getting or letting go. That one, I really had no connections that I could make. I tried. I don't really know. KD's always cryptic. KD's always tough to figure out what he's trying to say. But I think with him, there's a 50-50 chance it's either something very profound that means, something for the future of him, for the future of America, or it's just him talking.
Yeah. When I saw the first tweet, "Are you doing this to facilitate growth or to become famous?" I think that's a shot at people that are deciding to use social media or speak out because of, the attention they can grab, because everybody's talking about this stuff, and, jumping into that fire is a quick way to get eyes on you. I've felt some of that myself. I've never really been an activist. I've never been someone that's spoken out. I've kind of always thought that you should assume this about me, when you see me, you should just know like I'm black and like I'm trying to defeat stereotypes and I'm trying to be like exceptional and I'm trying to change the narrative. But this year I started speaking out on it because I realized it's not enough. And some people can think that you're doing that as like, you know, following a trend or just jumping into what's now. Because there were some people that were literally going to protest for an Instagram pic. There were some people that put some things out there, donated to some causes, and then went right back to doing what they were doing. So are you doing this to facilitate growth? Are you doing this to facilitate change and help us grow? Or are you just doing this for yourself to be looked at in a certain light when you're not really about that? And then the next one he said, which is important, getting or letting go? I think it's about like letting go of things that you had to get to somewhere. I think it's about like what's more important to you. Are you trying to like gain something personally from this? Are you all about yourself? Or are you ready to like move on from the past and let go of the past and like try and get to a better place for everybody? I'll say this. I was just talking to my mom and someone else, and I keep saying, yo, 2020 is the year of 2020 vision. Your 2020 vision of this future, of this utopia, you can't get there until you see through the bullshit. 2020 is about seeing things clear. Even in baseball, we're having issues with it, right? These unwritten rules. Now people are seeing through these unwritten rules and they're like, they're unwritten. They're bullshit. Why are you so mad? Well, like, what are you getting upset about? We got two different books. The unwritten rules to you are not the same to me. 2020 is making people question everything, and rightfully so. So good for KD throwing stuff out there. I also saw a cryptic tweet from Spencer today. He said, beware those that crave power.
Spence loves that tweet. He puts that tweet out like once a day.
And
I love it.
I was just about to say, he said that before, and it's his pinned tweet on his page from February 22nd. So maybe he just retweeted it today, but it made me think like, I don't know. It's just more cryptic stuff from your Brooklyn Nets.
What else is new? What else is new with the 2020 Brooklyn Nets?
But yeah, back to, I guess, this country, America. I got to speak on this because this also made me kind of take some shots at people on Twitter. Because yesterday I saw someone trying to say that I'm political, someone trying to say that I'm part of the left. And I'm like, nah, fuck all that. I've never voted. I'm not Republican or Democrat. I just go with what I think is right or wrong. I go off of like my instinct and gut on what I think is bullshit. Like I thought it was bullshit that Kyle Rittenhouse was able to drive across state lines, murder two people, and drive home. Like I don't care if he was purple. Like that's bullshit. And then yesterday, I read this tweet from Donald Trump, who I don't give any attention to usually before, last year, the year before that. But as we get closer to the election, like I'm absolutely going to give attention to it because there's no way we can go through another 4 years of Donald Trump. But Donald Trump gets on the Twitter machine 8:52 in the morning, and this is what he's on yesterday morning. He says, people are tired of watching the highly political NBA. Basketball ratings are way down, and they won't be coming back. I hope football and baseball are watching and learning because the same thing will be happening to them. Stand tall for our country and our flag with 3 exclamation points. Bruh, shut the fuck up. Like, don't even draft that tweet. Leave that in the drafts or delete it. Like, what are you talking about, bro? What are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, what's going on there? I'm just going to go out there and, normally I don't like recycling takes, but this one just pretty much sums up everything that I'm feeling. My boy Stephen A. Smith said this morning. You said you weren't watching. You said you weren't watching football. You said you weren't watching sports because they were doing all this, because they were kneeling. Why do you care now? Why is it something that you care about now? Basketball ratings aren't way down. They're up. Baseball ratings are up. All of these ratings are up. And this is after, baseball put BLM on the mound. Obviously, they've done some wavering since then. Football came out this weekend and said that there'd be social justice messages on jerseys. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you can tell the president to stay in his lane, but stay in your fucking lane. My God.
Yeah, you can tell him to stay in his lane, and he won't be president for long. He'll have a lot of opportunity to stay in his lane. I just don't get it, man. Like, the same people that back him say keep politics out of sports. And he can say this about the NBA and then even allude to what the NFL and MLB should do. But then in the next tweet, he was talking about how he met with the commissioner of the Big Ten and how the Big Ten should be starting up football. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought you didn't want these guys in the NBA to be so political. I
we're keeping politics out of
I
sports.
thought we were keeping politics separate from the sports. But you're going to meet with the commissioner of the Big Ten so that Ohio State and Michigan can play this year? Like, come on, bro. Stop moving the fucking goalposts. That's what I kept saying. I swear they're moving the goalposts. 1 minute Trayvon Martin is not a 17-year-old kid. He's a grown man. The next minute Kyle Rittenhouse is a 17-year-old kid and not a grown man. Like, make it make sense. I'm tired of the bullshit. I'm tired of these anonymous accounts and these bot accounts. People are finally starting to see, yo, a lot of these accounts on Twitter that are saying, I will never watch the NBA. Those are bots. A lot of people are starting to see some of these same accounts that are like, they disrespected the flag, I'm out. Those are bots, bro. Those aren't real people, because if you like a sport, if you like a team, you're going to watch that sport. And if you're not half brain dead, you understand now. We've been doing this for 4 years. We've been doing this for 4 years since Kaepernick took a knee. You understand now that taking a knee and protesting and speaking out was never to disrespect the military, never to disrespect the anthem or the flag. And at this point, fuck the anthem and the flag. Like, we're trying to get somewhere in this country. We're trying to get to a better place in this country so that we can all stand up with our hands over our hearts respectfully and be proud to be Americans. Like, this dude is divisive, and everything he does on Twitter is divisive. Like, I don't know how the White House or whoever's around him even co-signs that lame ass shit.
Let's bring it full circle. Kyrie said, quote, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created. We must learn to see the world anew. We cannot solve problems with the same attempts, the same methods from the past that didn't work before. We got to use new methods. We got to do new things. If it didn't work in the past, if the goalposts have moved, if things have changed, we got to try new things. We got to disrupt the social order." And the way I see it is, if Donald Trump doesn't like it, something good's happening.
Yeah, great. And LeBron said, like, yo, we don't need you to watch. We don't want you or your homies to watch. Like, the NBA community is good without you. Say whatever you want to say, but NBA fans are watching. And speaking of watching, later on tonight, the Heat, boy, the Heatles, I like them. I like that band of guys. The Heat lead the Bucks 1-0. They played well in that first game. I loved that first game. Jimmy buckets. That's a dog of a dog of a dog and a dog. They play tonight at 6:30. I'll be watching that right before the Yankees' first pitch. The Thunder and Rockets series. What a great series.
Baby.
Like,
Oh, baby.
who would have thought that last summer? Who would have thought, all right, well, round one of the playoffs next year, Rockets and Thunder, and it's going to go 7 games. We got another Game 7. Game 7 last night was lit. Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets, I like what they got. Michael Porter Jr., Jokic, they got a little squad. And those jerseys they had on last night are hard. I actually was thinking, like, I might have to order one of those. I'm wearing my Kyrie jersey right now that I said last episode. I'm ordering it right after the episode. I did that, and I'm definitely rocking that. But those jerseys are tough. Game 7 tonight at 9 p.m., Thunder and Rockets. Then tomorrow, the Celtics, they're about to clean up the Raptors, bro. I don't know what. I think, like, Kyle Lowry was a little bit hurt. Maybe Spicy P is hurt. But good, whatever. Get the Raps up out of here. Their title run chances are slim. They beat us in 4 games. I thought we were going to get at least 1 game off of them. But, yeah, they play Game 3 Thursday at 6:30. Most people be listening to this. It will be Thursday. So tonight at 6:30. And then Denver, they defeated Utah, so they will advance to meet the Clippers. And I think they can dance with the Clippers. I really do.
I think they can. I like that team.
I think they can
Jamal
dance.
Murray?
I think they can.
Ooh.
I think they can match up with those guys. Different than Luka, and I want to say this about Luka. Luka is a star in this league. At 21, he's still a kid in this league, but he's a boss. It rubbed me the wrong way how they tried to, like, bully him, how they tried to, like, attack him. Marcus Morris, you a bitch. Like, you didn't you stepped on this guy's ankle. You had a hard foul on him. You had some comments. It just doesn't make you look good. Like, Marcus Morris is 10 years older than this dude. Like, it doesn't make you look tough. It doesn't make you look like a better basketball player. Like, I don't think anybody likes you anymore for that. I guess you got to be that enforcer. I guess you got to be that dog for the Clippers. But Luka is a star in this league. People love that kid, and he's going to be around for a lot longer than you will be. Just not this year. I think the Mavericks are going to figure out, what they got to do. Obviously, Kristaps going down, suck for them. But like they gave the Clippers a little run for their money at times, and I'll be
Talk
interested to
about teams
see.
with futures. Got the Jazz too. I don't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go for
but
it.
No, we talk about teams that have futures. The Mavs and the Jazz. Jazz could have won that game.
Yeah,
Jazz
Mike
were
Conley
Jazz were, had that
sucked.
ball. He played so bad, but that ball was 3/4 of the way in the basket. Donovan Mitchell thought it was in, and boy, we want to talk about young dogs. Donovan Mitchell, Jamal Murray. Oh my God, that series.
Yeah.
They were both gassed since Game 7. We saw it. That's why the score was so low. It was kind of hilarious to watch a college basketball style game, for Game 7 in the NBA. But that's what happens when you play every other night. But damn, man, these games, this playoffs, I think it's really reinvigorated what the NBA has had going on. Just the amount of parity that's in this league now that there hasn't been in past years. There isn't this Warriors team that's just out here cleaning things up. Bucks are the best record in the NBA. Oh, what? They're going to go down 2-0 tonight? Like, I don't know. I mean, obviously the Nets are going to come in and go 16-0 in the playoffs. But this season, and with things we're looking at in the future, like what if AD leaves? What if that changes? There's a lot of stuff that can go on. And, I mean, the president talking about the ratings going down for the highly political NBA. The highly political NBA is playing some of the best basketball I've seen in the past 10 years.
Preach. I love it. You just reminded me, like, we had a 5-year run where it was like, yo, it's the Warriors, Cavs. The Warriors are going to win it. And that shit's lame. There's some parity back in the league. I don't know who's going to win it this year. I think the Heat have a good chance to come out of the East. And I think the Lakers have a good chance to ride AD and Bron to the finals too. We'll see what happens. But I love it. It's entertaining. We talk about Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell. Like, Jamal Murray, he's a beast. Like, that 50-point game he put up in Game 6, like, he was going all the way off. And they got to run the max to Donovan Mitchell. They got to run me to max. Like they got to pay him too. So these are...
Wait, but he's going to the Knicks, though.
Yeah, right. Knicks fans. Now, here we go with the Knicks fans, like, all disappointed. Like, you thought he was good. Yeah, you thought he had a chance. You should have drafted him.
Y'all drafted Frank Ntilikina.
You should have picked him when you had a chance. Either way. It's awesome, man. And I love the NBA. I love what I'm seeing out of the NBA in the bubble. Now families are allowed back in. Everybody's running a joke about Jamal Murray's girl coming back in. Ha ha ha. It's funny. We get it. We all saw the video. But yeah, it's good for these guys to get their families back in. I'm loving the videos of JJ Barrera leaving the bubble and getting with his kids. Fred Van Vliet getting his kids to come into the bubble. Good. We're making progress. We're moving forward with things. We're heading into the better future, and I am pleased. What I'm also pleased with, Talking Nets fam. We got to come up with a name for Talking Nets fans or the Talking Nets fam, TN fam. I don't know. I think there's a cooler name that exists there. But, man, these reviews started coming in.
They came in flying these last 2 episodes.
Hey, it takes time. I told you, my boy, we just got to keep at it. We got to keep working. A review came in and a DM came in that I'd like to read to close this episode. First review, I will read. And shout out to you guys that wrote reviews. I know that like Netshead wrote the review and I offered up a t-shirt. If you guys hit me up, I will send you a Talking Nets t-shirt, John Boy Media t-shirt, whatever. Like I literally don't care. Like I will get that done. Just message me after I read your review on this pod. Hit me up and send me your address. I will send it to your house. So let's go back here. Friday, B Graves 27. Oh, that's my boy BG Brandon. He's been rocking with me since the fan cave. Never met, but we're like internet friends all the way. So he writes, absolutely a great podcast. This has been one of my favorite podcasts to listen to. Keith and Hudson do a great job with it. I always love to hear what Keith has to say. I've been rocking with Keith since the MLB fan cave days. See, he said it in the review. Yo, shout out to you, BG. Hopefully I meet you down in Florida for spring training next year. Another guy, my guy Sergeant DI, Jersey rep. He writes, love it. Keith is an awesome guy and dedicates his life to entertain. Come here for all your Nets news, info, and breakdowns. Facts. Say that. These are 5-star reviews. All of these I'm reading are 5-star reviews. You're too kind. Rob Whale, a must listen for all Nets fans. Talking Nets is the go-to podcast for everything Nets. Plenty of insightful post-game analysis, and even during the stoppage, they landed great long-form interviews with Ian Eagle and other high-profile Nets personalities. Keith and Hudson have a great dynamic, and I can't wait to see what more they can pull off for 2021 and the next era of Nets basketball. I think we read that on the last one, but hey,
We did. Shout out to my boy living 2 doors down from me in my hall.
double dip, Rob Whale. We actually, you met him in person, so we read it twice. We actually have a real-life connection. And last but not least, Jason Sprite Tuesday writes, great podcast, 5 stars. I listen to every pod without fail. These guys seem to know what they're talking about, and it has made me enjoy basketball that much more. The insight that they bring really just enhances the whole experience of the sport, and I will always be a fan of this show. Thanks, guys, for the entertainment and new knowledge. Word. And one more that came in through the DM. So this didn't come in as a review, but I wanted to share it with you guys because I think Hudson can relate to this, and I also can relate to it, and I appreciated it. So if you don't know this about me, I work at John Boy Media full-time as a social media manager. Obviously, I'm also on-air talent, on a few podcasts, but I have access to all of our social media handles, and we get probably 200 DMs a week. And there's a lot to go through. But yesterday, me and BTS Bill were going through them. Even Talking Yanks, Bill was replying to people because we care. Honestly, none of us would be doing this without the people that support us. So we care. We do try and dip into the DMs and swim through them and find good ones. And BTS Bill brought this to my attention from Joe. The young man writes, I'm a huge fan of all your podcasts, especially the Brooklyn Nets podcast. I actually have my own basketball account podcast, and I was wondering if there was any possible way you guys could give me an internship and help me learn and grow with you guys. It'd be a real dream come true, being a part of an amazing team like the one you guys run. Thanks again, let me know. And he reached out to me as well. Since I had known about this message, we connected, and I'm not against it. I said, hey, man, if you want to intern for us, it's just me and Hudson building this brand, and we do have plans to expand and make the Talkin' Nets fam where we get together for games, where we get together to create content. It's not going to just be Hudson and I forever. Who knows? Hudson's going to be in school. Maybe, someone else got to pick up for him. I'm involved in a lot of different things. Maybe someone's got to pick up for me. We do want to expand with the right fans and the right people. So there's always an opportunity. All you got to do is reach out and see what you can do to help the team. Hudson?
Absolutely. And you said I can relate to it. I absolutely can. I was there. The only reason I'm here is because I did reach out. And, I obviously I'm not, you can't make any guarantees that things are going to fall in your lap quite the way they did for me, because that's just blind luck. That's just the universe throwing me a bone. But, why not? Why not shoot your shot? I think there's no harm in saying what you got to say. There's no harm in doing what you got to do. And let me tell you first, because me and Keith have talked about this a lot, is there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And that right there, what we just got, that's the right way to do it. Obviously, the way I got involved ended up being the right way to do it. But there's a wrong way to do it too. So don't just come calling the voicemail line, texting the voicemail line, commenting on our posts like, hey, can I get on the podcast?
Yeah, nah, that's never going to work. We had a couple people do that. And I'm like, why would I just throw you on the podcast that Hudson and I worked to build? It doesn't work like that. And there's some people, right? Like I had a guy message me, which is fine. Like, hey man, how do I get involved with the pod? And the first thing I do, I'm like, hey, we need reviews. Can you write us a review? Hey, just follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, interact with us online, share our stuff. And if you can't do those like minimal things, then why would I make you a co-host, or why would I shout you out or shout your brand out? Like, it don't work like that. Nothing works like that. This is business at the end of the day. I hope people know that. Like, John Boy Media is a real company. This is a real brand and business being built and all those type of things going on. We're not doing this for nothing. Obviously, we got a long way to go until we're making dough off of this, but like, it's all a part of a roadmap and a plan. But yeah, either way, we got to wrap this up. Hudson, you got anything else?
Man, not really. Just saying, let's keep grinding, Keith. Let's keep going. Let's keep working. Let's keep enjoying the NBA. Let's keep talking. Let's not let these issues that we talk about outside of the NBA die. I know you're not going to let them die. And if you're listening and you feel the vibe, you agree with it, keep rocking with us, keep going with us, interact with us on Twitter. Keith said, there's nothing without the listeners. There isn't anything without the listeners. There's nothing without, the interaction we get on the bottoms of every one of our posts. I, for the most part, run the Talking Nets socials, and especially the Twitter. And if you comment on the Twitter, I'm absolutely responding. I respond to just about everything, unless you're a Knicks fan or a hater. So just go out there, just do it, and it makes it more fun for us. It's more fun for everyone, so just keep with it.
Yeah, and we're coming to you once a week, about an hour a week, and there's no games on and not much news, but we're figuring out how to fill a whole hour. What we want to do is add some voicemails. So leave a voicemail, 201-870-0461. The number's on our Instagram, the number's on our Twitter. Call up. Tell us what you're thinking, not just about the Nets, about the NBA, or about me personally, Hudson personally. Just talk. Say your name, like your handle or your name when you leave that message, and we'll put you on the show. Also, make sure you're following us. I just said that. Like, it is important to follow us, and not just Talking Nets, but you should be following Talking Nets on Instagram and Twitter, as well as John Boy Media on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We have the YouTube fired up now. Search Talking Nets. I got to start plugging that. And just stay in the loop with what we're doing, because before you know it, we're going to hit the draft, and then we're going to have, preseason, and then we'll be right back into another season, and this bandwagon's going to fill up. Like I was telling John Boy and some of the guys in the office, I was like, I'm so thankful that we pushed through this coronavirus year, this shutdown, this first year of building Talking Nets, because when the bandwagon fills up, we'll be right there driving the thing. Like, let's go to the Barclays Center and let's root for KD and Kyrie and the Nets. So make sure you're following us. You can follow me at Keith McPherson on Instagram, on Twitter. Hudson Flynn, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at HudsonFlynn_ on Instagram and Twitter.
Subscribe, rate, review the pod. Shout out to the people that rock with me from the fan cave, from my Yankee stuff, that have followed me over here to this Brooklyn Nets pod. Appreciate you guys. You don't know how much I appreciate it. Write that review. Leave your name. That's another way to get on the pod. Leave 5 stars. It helps us grow. It helps us just be respected out there as a podcast. Everybody knows that. It's part of the game. Whether you have the worst podcast or the best podcast on Apple, it's reflected by how many star ratings you have and how many reviews you have. So help us out and do that. And that's all we got. We will see you in a week, Thursday morning, something like that. Yeah, next Thursday morning. We'll see what happens in the NBA. We'll see what news pops up, and we will be back here to talk Nets. That's all we've got for you. We're another week closer, another month closer to KD dominating the league. Let's go Nets. Brooklyn.
We go